didn't want to critique anybody else's stuff and everything, but this year, along with a few other things, you decided to let your points be known. One thing you said was, at this point, if I were to go back to working on something like Sonic, I'd pretty much pick up where I left off, ignoring everything that came after since. Now, are you saying you'd ignore the past 5 years of continuity, or you would start where the other writer left off and continue from there?
Okay. First off, my comments are not meant as a slight to the creative team on the book. Okay, it's just that I'm at a point in my life where I only want to work on my own material. I'm not interested in anybody else's in terms of storytelling. Okay, it's why I would pursue something with Marvel or DC, because they have their own established mythologies. Okay, so
you're not interested anymore in working on somebody else's franchise?
Not really, no. I mean, if they said, here, we'd like you to come back and do Sonic, hardly likely at this point, but if that were to have happened, I would be so inclined to pick up right where I left off. Because whatever direction anybody else took the characters in, it's not the direction I would have done. Okay, it's just a difference of opinion.
Okay. What is your favorite story that you wrote yourself?
That I wrote myself. Wow. That's a real toss-up, because Brave New World would have to be up there. I would have to say Knuckles the Dark Legion was definitely up there. I would say The Forbidden Zone was another one. Father's Day. I would have to say Father's Day. That was an intensely personal story for me to write.
What would be your favorite story that someone else other than you had written?
That is really tough, because Carl wrote some good stuff, Mike Gallagher wrote some good stuff, and to be fair to Ian, I haven't read any of his stuff. I really haven't followed the book at all since I got off it. As a matter of fact, the only reason I follow Mike's or Carl's stuff primarily is more a matter of I had to know some of the things in working on my own stories. Otherwise, I tended to stay away from being too close to anybody else's material. If you notice, Mike Gallagher really didn't rely on my stuff, any more than I relied on his. And as well as Carl. Carl didn't really, he had his own thoughts, how he wanted to do things as well. So.
Yeah, but it's kind of with the comic trade that when you're, when you're dealing with a franchise, a lot of times you have to pick up where somebody left off on a story. I mean, usually a story will end, but as far as the canon and continuity goes, it usually still goes in that direction.
Well, yeah, but the thing was, I was establishing a lot of the canon and continuity. Okay, for example, Prince Elias, he was strictly my character. Okay, I started him up in the Tales of the Freedom Fighters, where I'm establishing the lead up to the Knuckles story, The Forbidden Zone, where I actually bring the character on stage, and thus I set him up for Carl to run with him in the pages of Sonic. So that's pretty much, where I was in the continuity, in the canon. I was '96 or so, editor Scott Fulop had given me a call and told me that the Saturday AM series had just been canceled. And he anticipated, based on previous track histories of other comic series, based off a TV show or a toy or any other, medium, that the Sonic title was probably going to be canceled within 6 to 8 months once the cartoon went off the air. So I was essentially hoping for the series to run at least to issue 50, and Endgame was essentially designed to be the final battle, the ultimate battle between Sonic and Robotnik, and we close out the series with issue 50. A funny thing happened on the way to issue 50, however, is once the cartoons went away and the video games were coming out very irregularly, that the comic book became the only game in town. And the sales went up, and when people took a second look, they said, well, this is really selling, we're not going to cancel it. So here I had submitted the Endgame storyline, and Princess Sally was killed off